Hello and welcome to Sweet Spot DFS. This is a preview for the RSM Classic. It's coming out to you guys late. Last night I tried getting a video out, which still would have been late, but some of the data that I mined and how I sorted it just messed it all up. So I did a segment yesterday where I went heavy on tee times and pairings. Well, I had the tee times wrong, so it just didn't make any sense, and therefore I pulled the plug on the video. I still wanted to get a preview video out anyways. The round 1 of the RSM Classic has already concluded, so the results are going to be somewhat biased. I shouldn't even say biased. They're not going to be biased, but you're probably going to feel like it is. And I know I just said that, but I'm not. I'll show you the lineups I already created based off of what I thought, because I keep that concrete. That's gonna stick. So we'll do the whole thing that we typically do. So we'll go through course information, course history, recent form. We'll go through the last week buckets, the tee time pairings, the grass stats, and then the swing stats, which I've kind of upgraded a little bit. So we'll go through all that information. I'll try to make this somewhat quick. I know I say that every single week and that never really comes to fruition, but hopefully we will this time around. Let's go ahead and get into the course information. It's being played at a resort called Sea Island Golf Club. There's 2 golf courses that are going to be played. The Plantation course is only going to be played Thursday or Friday. So the field right now, the 156-man field, will play both golf courses, Thursday and Friday. Or I should say Thursday or Friday. So they'll either play Seaside on Thursday and then Plantation on Friday, or the vice versa. And then the weekend is just played strictly on Seaside. And Seaside is a par 70, that's 7,000 yards. Plantation's a par 72, that's 7,000 yards. So very similar in yardages. I don't know exactly which course really plays harder than the other one. I don't have any notes on this golf course, so I'm not positive, other than the grass type and obviously the designer, which is not going to be really relevant this week. But the golf course is being played in Georgia, which is pretty relevant. That actually, I think, I want to say, I know Kevin Kisner is a Georgia Bulldog. I want to say Jason Duffner is as well. I think Kuchar is in South Carolina. I think Webb is a North Carolina person. So I think just those 2 that I named are pretty much the notable names to think about when it comes to Georgia natives. That's basically what I was getting at. So it's relevant to some extent. I wouldn't put everything into it, but I did want you guys to know about it. So yeah, but that is the course information. We can go ahead and get into the spreadsheet that I was kind of trying to modify as I was talking there. So if you figured I was distracted, I sure was. Course history, we'll look at this. I already have it filtered by who's playing and then their average. And every week what I'll do is I'll comb through here, look at, a miscut or a withdraw, and just remove that from the field or from that person's results. So like Kevin Kisner, for instance, he goes to 7.2 when he's a 20.1 for his finishing average, or his average finishing position at this course. We can do the same thing for Chris Kirk. Chris Kirk goes from 14.6, I should say the other way around, 26.3 to 14.6. So that's pretty decent, and I do like him this week. I'll actually, although the round has concluded, I don't have the results memorized except for a few people. Like I know Webb Simpson is leading the tournament, and I know some of my favorite guys are up at top, and we'll go through those during the DK page. But just going through this and combing through this allows you to kind of get a little understanding. So we take the miscut from Brian Gay away. He ends up having 10 would be his average finishing position. 10th would be his average finishing position. And I'm not really going to go through it. You guys can obviously tell if you are watching the video. I don't really have anything to say if you guys are just listening. Nothing really else pans out other than Kevin Kisner and Ryan Gay, basically, because they're obviously their average tends, or it propels it forward quite a bit for their average finishing position. All right, that's enough rambling on that. We'll go to recent form, and the one thing. So this is the 2019. This was last year's results. The one thing I want you guys, the one thing I want to drill into, you guys, it's just a hodgepodge of recent forms. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but it was just basically I said it's rainbow colored. And obviously the colors are different ranges. So if you guys have been here before, you know that light green is 1st through 20th, yellow is 20th to 40th, orange is 40th to 60th, light red is 60 to 80th, and then anything over 80 is the dark red. So that's miscuts, that's withdraws, DQs as well. I put them all in kind of the same bucket. Miscuts get like a 5-point difference, then a withdrawal or a disqualification. So, as you can tell, I always look at the top 10. Top 10 has a bunch of different, ranges of recent form coming into the tournament. And my recent form always looks back the last 7 weeks. So, when we go through this, you're going to see the same thing year to year. And that's the one thing that I want to drill in is if you were making lineups this week, what you would want to have done is basically update or diversify your lineups with finding guys who don't have very good recent form and pairing them up with guys that have decent and then kind of medium recent form. I didn't do that when I was creating my lineups. I was more focused on the last week buckets, which we'll get into right after this. But again, recent form, kind of all over the place. And again, all over the place. So one thing I will say, you don't see many miscuts. You did see it the 1 year, but most of it still stays under the miscut. Okay, we got another one, 2 of them here. And then I think 2 of them right here. Still to keep in mind, it's basically just allowing you to see, hey, who cares if they have a miscut coming into here? Who cares if that's what their average is? Because they can turn around and get a top 10. That's good to see. It allows you to be a little bit more open-minded. So yeah. Going on to the last week buckets. Oh gosh. I just realized I didn't tell you that it's Bermuda Golf or Bermuda Greens. So both courses are Bermuda, but there is a overseed of POA on the greens. I don't know how that's gonna. I really don't know which strain is stronger between the two, but if I were to guess, it would be POA. I did not include POA in any of my stats, so I'm going strictly with Bermuda because I do think it matters, especially like in the fairways and the rough. Especially in the rough, that you have to know how to play Bermuda golf courses in order to do well. And I'll stick by that. But again, putting is where it's at. That's where you're going to score, and obviously the greens are going to be the surface that these golfers will be on at least half of the time. So definitely many more shots are on the greens, most likely, than not. But we can go into the last week buckets. Now, if you're new, what I do is I basically track all the different ranges that golfers finish year to year for a particular tournament and then record them here. So in 2019, you can see 4 guys inside the top 5 had a miscut the year before, and then 2 of them did not play. And then I'll do that, I'll record, and then I do a count over here to see, basically to get a ranking, and then that's how I rank them. And then that's where you see the color scheme over here. Same thing applies for last week top 5. So this would be your top 5 table. This would be your top 10 table. And then I use the top 10 table to I'll transfer this over to the DK page, which we'll get to. And then that's where we can try to basically if I were to say you wanted to find at least 2 golfers who did not play the year before, you can come here and this will justify that reasoning. And then you can plug and play 2 of those golfers. Now you'll see in my lineups, I did that. This is what I focused on, was finding golfers in these groups basically. And I had at least one who had a miscut the year before. And then I just mix and match the rest of them because there's nothing really consistent. The 1 to 20 actually, had decent results, so you'll see a lot of yellow on my lineups. But yeah, that's how I use the bucket system. And then I also come over here, I record what the last year in combination with their last week score to try to find, just to narrow it down even more, like the last year 2s. If we looked at last year 2, last week 1s, you'll find them all over the place except for in 2016. So maybe that makes you feel a bit more comfortable for playing 2 1s. Now, what I would have said in the past is like, well, 4 out of 5 equals 80%. So in 80% of your lineups, you should play a 2-1. But I've changed my thought process that if there was not a 2-1 in 2020, that would change the percentage to 66%. But if there was, it would change it to 86%. So there isn't much of a change between 80 to 83%. That's what it ends up. So there's not much of a change from 80 to 83. There's a big change from 80 to 66, though. I mean, it's relatively speaking. So I would say, if anything, pick one of those 2 numbers to stick by. So if you are kind of like, I like this system, I'm not totally confident in it, then play 66% of your lineups with a 2-1. You obviously can go, I don't believe in it at all. So either go, or I should say this, in 2020, if you just take 2020 away, and this is all you're focused on, and you're like, I just don't think a 2-1's gonna find the top 10, then don't play 2-1s at all. You can just remove all the 2-1s from your pool, and that's totally fine. That will cut out not a lot of players, but a good chunk of them, where you're like, okay, not focusing on the 2-1s, I'll focus on the rest of the 2s, because obviously you see there's a bunch of 2s throughout the years. So, but that's how I will use the last year buckets. I didn't see anything that was really telling, other than finding a last year 2 or 1 and putting them in most of my lineups. Again, you'll see that when we come to the DK page and how I constructed the lineups. The other thing, I'll come over here and look at tee times. So I've already went through this and starred the tee times that I liked, or I should say golfers within the tee times. I'm a firm believer that if you're in a good group, that can propel you to even more success. If you're in a bad group, it can propel you into even worse failures. So I'm a firm believer that the group you're playing with matters. And that's why I have stars next to some of these players, because I like them as a group. Like this one here, Jim Furyk, Russell Knox, Jason Duffner. I think they can play off each other. I mean, I guess it's yet to be seen. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull this off to the side over here and take a look at the PGA Tour and get to the leaderboard, so we can kind of see how that looks, see if we can find anything as I'm talking through this. But I do have a filter on this, so we can see by all the guys that I've liked and get rid of the ones that I didn't. You can see that I like the Brian Gay, Cameron Tringali, and Tom Hoagie lineup. Russell Henley by himself. Brian Stewart with Scott Harrington, which Scott Harrington did well this for the first tournament, or for the first round, I should say. I'm not sure how Brian Stewart did. Did he not show up? Okay, never mind. He finished even, so not the greatest. Harrington, I think, finished 5 under. Yep, so he's tied for 5th. So I liked Harrington, and it's mainly because of his Bermuda stats. And Brian Stewart also has pretty decent Bermuda stats as well. I liked Harris English, Denny McCarthy, Scotty Scheffler. I think Scheffler had just a mediocre round, like not the greatest. 2 under, which is it's reasonable. Let's see how McCarthy did. And I actually I didn't intend to create the, like, I'm not going to continue going forward with this just because I don't want to go through every single player and see how they did. I just wanted to see some results. So Scotty Scheffler finished 2 under, Harris English was 1, Denny McCarthy was 1 under. Not bad, but they're going to have to obviously do a little bit better in order to make the cut tomorrow. And they played the Plantation course, which I can't tell if that was the harder of the two or not. I mean, it was just kind of all over the place. Yeah, I guess I'll go through all of them. So Luke List, Doc Redman, KH Lee. I liked KH Lee, and look and behold, like, he is in the top 5 right now, I think. Yeah, he's top 2, so he's in second. Well, okay. Now, oh boy. I told you I wasn't going to do this, but I kind of want to because I want to see how, like, Luke List did. I wasn't really paying attention, so he finished 3 under. And Doc Redman did well. So this is a perfect example of a group that kind of rode off each other. So Doc Redman was 4 under, Luke List was 3 under, and KH Lee was 6 under. You know, all of those golfers had been struggling prior to this tournament, and then you put them all together, and they have the potential to do something like this. If one guy gets hot, the other guys can play off of it, and I think that's exactly what happened. So that's good, and you're gonna see the same thing with this group here. So Matt Kuchar, actually I'll show you. I'll bring this over here, but I'll let you look at this screen for a while. I shouldn't say for a while, just until I pull up the names. But we'll put Kuchar on here with Horschel, because, man, did they disappoint. I mean, if you played any of those guys, you were not happy with how they did. I don't know about Zach Johnson. I followed the tournament, but I don't know exactly. Okay, so Zach Johnson finished 3 under. That's good. Right, so here you go. So Redman, List. I didn't include KH Lee because he's right here. So you get those guys, but then here you go. Billy Horschel played with Matt Kuchar and Zach Johnson. So Zach Johnson played well, but Kuchar and Horschel, I guarantee you Horschel probably held everyone else down because he's that kind of player. When he doesn't play well, he's the one that throws temper tantrums. So, I mean, I'm guessing that's what probably held Kuchar back a little bit. They did start on hole 10, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I don't know if it was windier, like more in the beginning of the day as opposed to at the end of the day. But either way, it's a good example of these two groups here. Like, they played off each other. These guys did not. And that's the other thing. Like, so I like these guys because they can play off each other, but also they can hold each other back. And you're never really going to know unless you just have a good feeling, you know, like anyone that was playing in Webb Simpson's group. Or if you're just like, man, Luke List has decent course history here. So does KH Lee. Like, maybe they will tap into that and then they can push each other to play better. You know, that kind of thing. So, I liked Adam Long with Hudson Swafford, Stu Cink, Webb Simpson with Austin Cook. Now I want to see where Austin Cook is because I wasn't following him. Obviously, Simpson is in the lead. 1 under. So Austin Cook didn't really play off of that. I don't know who else they played with. I could, you know, unfilter this, and I'm not going to figure it out. Han, Watney, Castro, like that group. Zhang, McNeely, Harmon. Oh, no. Zhang and McNeely. Zhang, I think, finished 1 under. I don't know what McNeely did, but McNeely is definitely a volatile golfer. He finished 1 under as well. Kisner didn't play that well. I don't know what Horschel or what Howell did. Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna go through all these except for now I see a group. I want to see what this. Okay, so Luke Donald. I actually like Luke Donald this week. You're going to see I played him in a bunch of lineups. I think Luke Donald finished 4th, or 4 under, I'm sorry. I don't know what Ryan Armour did. No, come on, man. Oh. Armour finished 2 under. That's pretty impressive. And then Munoz, I think, was at 4 under at one point in time. I don't know. Did he go back down to 2 under? I wonder. I think that's what he did. Oh, he's at 5 under. So that's another good group. Like you could look at that group and be like, nah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I did like Luke Donald's course history. Ryan Armour usually plays short course as well, and Munoz plays well in Bermuda. So those 3 things can trigger at the same time, and they all can play well, which they obviously did. Oh yeah, Luke Donald went down to 2 under. He went from 4 to 2. So a good group. I wish I would have played more of that. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to bring up was Patrick Rogers, because I liked Rogers this week, and because I liked Rogers, I'm like, well, who is he playing with? Well, Patrick Rogers finished 4 under on the day. Nick Taylor finished, I think, 4 under on the day. Let me pull that up. 5 under on the day, sorry. And JJ Spawn, did you do anything today? Because he'd been struggling. JJ Spawn's still struggling, +2. But that's the other thing. Like, I don't put 3 players together. I usually put 2 players together. And let's go ahead and get in the spreadsheet right now. What I want to show you. So here are all my lineups. What I ended up doing in this column over here, for most of them, I think maybe 90% of my lineups, I played somebody, or I put somebody with who they're playing with. So Brendan Todd and Keith Mitchell are playing together. Harris English and Denny McCarthy are playing together. Duffner and Knox. Hahn and Castro. Johnson and Horschel. I did that throughout this whole column right here. Again, except for a few, and I'm sorry I can't. I should have captured it at the moment, but I didn't. Some of them, they're not playing together. So if you're looking at some of these going, I don't think those guys were playing together, you'd be right, because I didn't do it for everyone. But obviously, you see Kuchar and Horschel, they played together. Furyk and Duffner played together. There you go. There's Xinjun Zhang with Maverick McNeely. Luke List with KH Lee. Like, Simpson, Kuchar, I don't know. Oh, Kevin Chappell he kind of shit the bed. Like, oh man, I was hoping that Chappell would have done better. But yeah, so you can see that I did that over here. Well, now if you look at these 2 columns, excuse me, what is the common theme you see? You see nothing but 1s over here. Nothing but 2s. Obviously, I splashed 1 right there. So this column was 1s. This column was 2s. This column were 3s and 4s. I don't remember really putting many 5s in there. I had a couple 5s I liked, so that's where you see them here. But if we went back to this little not illustration but graphic, there's, for the last years, you don't see many 6s or 5s. Sure, you see a bunch of 5s there, but any given year, you don't see a lot of 5s or 6s. So I didn't play a lot of 5s or 6s. I wasn't really convinced that 5 or 6s were going to do well this week. But that's how I created all my lineups. And then you can see I went kind of heavy on Patrick Rogers. I really liked Patrick Rogers this week. I liked Austin Cook, so I put a lot of stock in Austin Cook as well. I didn't go full in on anybody. So you're not... I'll pull up, because I have another spreadsheet that I look at. This is where I go to create lineups to figure out what my remaining salary is. But also I have an ownership percentage over here on the right side. So you can see how many I've played of them. So I'll go ahead and hide all of this information. Again, we'll go back into the spreadsheet and I'll give you the reasons why I liked certain players. But you can see here, Webb, I had in 9 of my lineups, so that's 22%. I had a 40 lineups I created, like I say I always do. So pretty even ownership, and I'll tell you this, how I did that, I didn't even keep track of how much I was owning them. I had done this strategy first, followed up with this strategy over here, and the ones I don't think I did have Matt Kuchar and Billy Horschel in them. So a lot of the ones that I like there I put here, and only the guys that I liked. So I didn't really put a lot of Adam Hadwin there. I didn't put a lot of Aaron Wise or Russell Knox, but they are in my lineups elsewhere because they just fit the pieces. So again, I started this way. That gave me some salary that I could play with. I added the ones and kind of did a random sort. I added the twos, did a random sort, and then everything in between. So like these two columns were pretty much empty. Some of them I had one player added to them, so I only had to add one. So like you could think like these golfers were already there, so I added Zach Johnson because he fit in the salary. And if you went over here, I had $200 remaining. But yeah, I didn't really have to do a lot of adding. I just was like, here are my ones that I really like, here are my twos that I really liked, and then we'll add the rest. So we can go ahead and get back into the DK page, go over the pieces of information that I cared about that I liked. So go ahead and filter this, put a filter on it. So we went through the tee times, starting holes, golf course they're starting on. Not so much that, but it is a part of it. Excuse me. Kind of recovering from a cold. I don't really go over odds or golf rankings, so I'll go ahead and hide that as well. Could have done this kind of pre, and I'll go ahead and hide this too. We don't need to see any of that. Sure, how about this? We'll hide all of this since we talked about it as well. All right, so now we're down to grass stats. If we go ahead and sort by this, you'll see I starred a bunch of guys over here. I put an X because as I was going through this video yesterday, I said I'm just going to X out Kevin Kisner because he was a 6, a last week 6. And you don't see a lot of last week 6s, especially you don't see this combination a lot. And a lot of you are like, well, that doesn't really matter. In the bucket system, it does, because you're not going to see a lot of 3-6s. Sure, people can break the mold, but the likelihood of it happening, pretty low. So it gives me a reason to get off of Kevin Kisner. And I don't think Kevin Kisner is actually doing that well. I'm not even sure. So Kevin Kisner is +3 right now. And I will go ahead and just show you that if you don't believe me. +3. So the X mark would have worked. How much did I play him? Kevin Kisner. Oh, I have to go to the other spreadsheet. Kisner, I ended up playing in 12% of lineups because he did fit, and I kind of had the FOMO feeling where I just didn't want to miss out. So that's why I played Kevin Kisner. Probably should have went with how I felt in the beginning or from yesterday's video. But here you go. All of the guys that I like, they're all doing pretty well for their overall Bermuda stats. And that's kind of just where I went with it. We looked at the top 10 Bermuda percentage. This is the likelihood a golfer will finish inside the top 10 for Bermuda tracks. Right away at the top, you see Scott Harrington. Shot 5 under today. Looking at his stats, he had a top 10 at, I think he got second place at the Shell Houston Open, and then he missed a cut at the Sanderson Farms Championship earlier this year. So the only 2 events he's had, one of them was a top 10, and I liked the fact that it was at the Shell Houston Open. I'm sorry, it's not the Shell Houston Open, it's just the Houston Open. Fact that it was at the Houston Open as opposed to the Sanderson Farms. Sanderson Farms has always kind of been known as the alternate event. It used to be. It's now a staple in the PGA Tour season, but the field is still pretty low, pretty weak, where it's still kind of an alternate feeling. Either way, I played Scott Harrington. I'm not sure how much I played of Scott Harrington. How much did he cost? 67. So if I scroll down to 67, Scott Harrington, you can see I marked him. He's in 15% of my lineups. Again, this is just to show you how much I've played of those guys. You can see Luke Donald, I play in 12.5%. Because again, I like that. Patrick Rogers, 15%. Luke List, 12.5%. Doc Redman, 10%. I mean, 4 lineups, obviously. But I really didn't think too much about ownership because I just wanted to play a lot of the players I liked. I did not narrow my pool down whatsoever. Well, if we were to filter this and go by, I used to be able to, okay, never mind. Can't really do it that way right now, but I could filter out all the players that I played and I didn't play, and show you that I probably played 40% of the player pool. A lot of the people up top, a lot of it's just, fear of missing out, and I don't mind throwing bullets at certain players. I'm not playing high stakes right now, so I don't care if I lose like 10 cents or a quarter or even $1, because when I make these lineups, I then put these numbers here, which end up just being like the last year bucket score. I just put them over here, and then I just randomize the range. And then I copy and paste this over into the upload file that you can do with DraftKings, and sort it based off of just different criteria to try to randomize it. And then that's how I enter my lineups, because then I'll copy paste those lineups, or I'll upload that, and then that's I don't know what some of these contests that these lineups are in, because that way I'm not creating biased lineups for my contests, which I've done in the past, and it's been horrible. Because I'll be all in on one player for those lineups, and they don't do well, but then I'll have a really good lineup in a 10-cent game or a 25-cent game that will get me $2, or it'll get me $3-4, which is good. It's a good ROI for those tournaments, but they could have been much better in a $1 or a $3, So I learned the hard way. I don't like to go all in on the bigger GPPs. So let's go back to the spreadsheet. So, okay, we see a lot of this right now. You see a lot of these players. That's essentially, like, you can see stars. These are the guys I was interested in. There's KH Lee for you. Didn't really have a great overall Bermuda score, and he didn't have a really good 2020 Bermuda score, but he did find himself inside the top 10 20% of the time on Bermuda tracks. So it's like, yeah, that's worth it. Sebastian Munoz, same thing. Zach Johnson, Luke Donald. That's why I played Kevin Chappell. So like a lot of these golfers, like these two guys, kind of duds. Furyk came back a little bit. I anticipate Kuchar will. Kevin Kistner's not doing the greatest, but there's Webb Simpson, the top of basically the Bermuda percentage, the top 10 Bermuda percentage, minus Scott Harrington, because Harrington's only played 2 events. Either way, you went strictly by this. You could have went with Harrington and Simpson, and then you like Furyk. He's kind of middle price. That still would have helped you out. Luke Donald would give you a little bit of salary relief. Play with Sebastian Munoz and KH Lee. I don't know what that price is. What is that? So that leaves me with 11,000 left. So I could have went with Kuchar. You could have went a lineup like this, and you would have had these guys here. That's why I think grass stats matter a ton. It's just, you know how to play off them. You know how to putt through them. You know how to read the greens. You pair that also with course history, which I'm not sure if any of these guys have very good course history. Well, kind of just messed that up a little bit. So still here. Went this way. Did we go with Furyk? Yeah, I think so, right? Or maybe we didn't. We didn't go with Furyk. We went with these guys, Munoz and Kate. So course history: Scott Harrington, nothing. Webb Simpson, 35.4. Kuchar, 33. Luke Donald, not the greatest. Munoz, not the greatest. KH Lee, not the greatest. And I guess I would go against my own better judgment. So then we look at the recent form. Okay, we're getting to that rainbow color. Good. Reds, good. Now we get into 3 reds. I'm not sure how I feel about that. That might be a mistake. And maybe instead of going, well, for this purpose here, well, we'll go ahead and get rid of him and put in like Chris Kirk. So that gives us a better salary. Excuse me for the coughing. Again, I'm getting over a cold, but throat's getting a little dry. And then 2020 Bermuda stats, not anything I really care too much about, honestly. So I'm not making that a huge priority. I didn't make that a huge priority. There are only 2 events in the 2020 season that were Bermuda. Not enough for me to get too excited about. But, I mean, you could have got on some players that were decent, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Sebastian Munoz, Zach Johnson. I don't know how the rest of these guys did, but either way, that's how I went about making my lineups with the grass stats. And then the last little piece here that I want to show you is I updated the swing stats, as I call them, to show you, you know, basically the stats I typically do, but then also put the quantity of rounds, holes, attempts, that kind of thing, just to give you a little bit better understanding of where those stats are coming from. Plus, we can use them a little bit to really like bear down on some of these players that we like. So, you know, Lanto Griffin, 20 rounds in. He's this is color coded again based off of 1 through 20, 20 through 40. So light green means he's the top 20 in the field at tee to green. So if that's something that you fancy, especially if it goes with whatever things you're looking for in golfers, I mean, that this is one way to do it. So I like doing this. You know, I'm not a huge proponent of these swing stats. I don't really care. I'm sorry for hitting buttons. I'll keep my hands away from the freaking keyboard. But it is a better way to determine or just to kind of pinpoint some of these players. So you can see like birdies, birdie or better. I also pair with birdies. So if we sorted by birdies, came down here, you know, you see Lanto, Scotty Scheffler, Zinjun, Maverick McNeely. That's why I kind of liked Maverick McNeely. McCarthy, Gay, Long, Hubbard, Burgoon. Again, I'm not even sure where some of these guys are on the leaderboard, but once we see the results come in and we go through the review video, we'll get through this stuff and see what it looks like. But again, this is the preview. Wanted to show you all this information just to see, just so you can see kind of the new setup that I'm going through, and not so much going through, but gonna present now going forward. And yeah, unfortunately I can't make lineups for you because I already did. I already showed you how I made those lineups. But we'll see how that goes, because I might use that going forward, where I start my lineups with pairings and then get into maybe, because I used to always go by anchors. So like, oh, I like Webb Simpson, so I'll put him in, you know, if I were to copy, paste, I'm going to put him in 11 lineups. So there's 11 there. Horschel, I'll put in 5 lineups. Kuchar, I'll put in whatever. And then this is how I'd start my lineups off, would be right here. These were my anchors, and then I'd build to the right. What ends up happening is you're starting out with the expensive players, and it's really difficult to slot in variety. And mostly because you're like, well, I want to pair Simpson up with Billy Horschel. And how about this? I'm going to go ahead. We'll just go ahead and undo a lot of this. So like I'd go, okay, let's go Webb Simpson with Billy Horschel. I like that together. So then we can see how much does that leave us. Oh, I copied and pasted this. Oh, I'm in the DK page. That's why. if I were to change over to the lineup construction page, this I can do. So if I were to go copy that right here and drag down, now you'll see these updates. So I have salary left over, but if I was like, okay, I want these two guys together, I only have 6850 left. Well, how do I make a lineup with 6850? I have 4 positions left. So one of my favorite plays that's really low is Luke Donald, so I might as well put Luke Donald there. I think I can just go Luke. It's not going to show up because I already have information in there. Well, how about this? I like Patrick Rogers, so I want to play Patrick Rogers. That bumps it down slightly. Scott Harrington I like. We'll just do that because biasy right now. But that only moves it up to 6850. Now, this is where it gets really tricky because, okay, 2 spots left to average 6850. All of us can do that math, not a big deal. The problem with this, creating lineups this way, I put Patrick Rogers with Scott Harrington. I like those guys for this tournament. What do you think I'm going to do with the rest of my lineups? For most of them, I'm going to put Patrick Rogers and Scott Harrington. Mainly because memory serves me right, they allow me to, to put 2 studs together. So as I'm, anchoring my lineups with these high-priced guys, I'm more likely going to, especially if I only have one Matt Kuchar lineup, I'm like, well, I like Patrick Rogers, I'm going to put him there. What happens if Patrick Rogers does bad? I get it. There are strategies out there that go around this. Like, if you're all in, that's where you'll make the most money. If you spread it out, you might stay afloat, but you're never really winning big. Which I would argue then, if you have a system down and you're doing it that way, chances are your one lineup that's going to hit is going to hit big. That's the thing I always see too. It's like, okay, because I've always heard this throughout the industry. Well, if you put that lineup in a $3 lineup, like the $3 GPP, then you also put that lineup in the $1, maybe make one alteration, like one player, you pivot, and then you put another one in like the $5 or the $8 or whatever. You could win all of those tournaments and win all of that money if you have the best lineup. Yeah, true. Very true. But if you do that week in, week out, you're going to lose so much money until you win big. And really, I've also heard this before, like, if you don't have enough money, don't gamble. Well, the thing is, it's fun to gamble. I only put $8.30 in this week. I put in $10.50 last week. I put $10.50 the week before. That, 3 weeks ago, I made $30 off my 10. Last week, I made $1 off my 10. So I'm still up within the last 3 weeks. And it continues me to play. It continues to hone my, whatever you want to call it. But I also created a lineup this week that was second place in the 1K winner take all. I only put one lineup in there. Again, I randomized it. I'm not even sure which lineup. I know what it was, but prior to entering it, I didn't know what lineup was in the 1K. Now let's say I win that one. Now I have money to continue to gamble and be a bit more risky. So that's my perspective on it. I'm not, because my bankroll is only like $20. I don't care if I spend half of it playing a lineup. Next week I can put in another $20. And I know that's not how bankroll management happens, but I'm not a bad gambler. I'm not a gambler who's addicted to gambling. I like playing fantasy golf because I'm pretty good at it. I just haven't really jumped off the deep end and put a lot of money into it. I know if I put more money into it, I'll win more money. I know that's how it works. But at this moment in time, I'd rather win money and then play with house money. That's what I want to do. I want to get to a point where I'll play with house money. And I know that's probably like fool's gold, but that's going to be my objective is to play off of house money. And eventually I'll get there. I know. I've been really close winning some of these tournaments. So I'm going to stick to my process and continue to go on and see. I've been really close. many a times. I was even close to winning $1 million for the Masters. I shouldn't say that because that's what everyone else says. Like, you see yourself at the top of the leaderboard. If only these scenarios happen, you'd win $1 million. Yeah, I get it. I'm not gonna make that proclamation. I mean, I did, but I'm gonna take it back. So, with all that being said, I enjoy creating lineups and randomizing the people that I'm putting in those lineups, because I like more than just a core of players. I don't know. I feel more confident hitting this way. I know the odds aren't really in my favor. I mean, especially, okay, so I like Luke Donald and Patrick Rogers. So if those two were on, okay, let's say Scott Harrington, KH Lee, and Patrick Rogers, since those guys are at the top. If I like those guys and I had them with Webb, those four, if that was my core, and that's what I'm like, I'm stuck with this. This is what I like, because I did like those players, and I created all my lineups that way. I'd be sitting looking pretty good right now in a lot of my tournaments, which I understand. That's how it goes. And I really thought about doing that, but I'm also still researching. So I want to put as many players into contests to see their results, because DraftKings doesn't do a really good job of, when the tournament ends, you able to collect that data. Like, if you didn't play a player, how are you going to find that information? Like, how many points they scored in that tournament? You would have to, do some kind of data mine and then some formulas and calculations to find what they scored for that tournament, the week before. And I don't care to do that. Unless you guys know, let me know if I'm missing out on something where I can find that information easier. But I still like playing as many guys as I can. That makes sense. Obviously, I have a system, right? I have a process. What I did here, my 1s and 2s are covered. Like, I wanted to play at least 2 1s. I wanted to play at least 1 2. If you go through all of these, you're going to see, hey, there's 2 1s. 2 2s as well. I don't even know if there's a lineup in here that doesn't have more than, or that has less than 2 2s. Oh, never mind. We got a couple here. So there's 2 1s, 1 2, a 4, and 2 3s. Like, so that's my process. And then here you go, 4 1s. We'll see how it all goes. This is actually the lineup. This is the lineup that's in the 1K. Funny enough. So I need Billy Horschel to do well. Once he does well, I think that lineup could take off. So that's how I got it. So there you go. KH Lee, for whatever reason, paired up with Luke Donald, Patrick Rogers, Alex Noren, Adam Hadwin. I think that's a really good lineup. Horschel just needs to turn it around, and hopefully he does. So thanks for watching, guys. I know it's a little bit different from week to week, but I wanted to get a preview video out there so you guys can see it and see how this week ended up. I'm sorry I couldn't get it out there before you guys made lineups. But now, after this tournament, we'll have a week off, or a month off, and I intend to do a little bit of a revamp. So hopefully I will have an easier way to get you information. I would love to have a database, from my data created, so I could just pull the data from there every single week. That would be awesome. But until that time, we're kind of got to do the copy and paste method and power queries and stuff like that. So either way, thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go ahead and close it here. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the review video, see how this did, and see how well you guys did. Thanks for watching.